This month on Focus Black Oklahoma. Join us as we learn about ongoing efforts to improve maternal health care in Ghana.
Continue our coverage on the significance of somatic therapy on Black bodies.
Explore how soccer fans around the globe are confronting the rising costs of attending the World Cup.
And hear from Sonda Slade on her experience with half-empty nest syndrome.
All of this and more on Focus Black Oklahoma.
Focus Black Oklahoma is sponsored by the Black Church Traditions and African American Faith Life program at Phillips Seminary, offering a master's degree in social justice online and in person. Learn more at wherefaithleads.com.
This is Focus Black Oklahoma. I'm Jacob Littlebear.
And I'm Dr. Autumn Brown. Bringing a child into the world should not come at the cost of a mother's life. Yet in Ghana, many women continue to face significant challenges in accessing quality maternal health care. Behind the statistics are real stories of women, families, midwives, and healthcare workers navigating systems under pressure while working to ensure safer pregnancies and healthier futures. FBO's Zaakirah Muhammad explores the realities of maternal health in Ghana, the cultural and structural factors shaping care, and the efforts underway to improve outcomes for mothers across the nation.
Since the year of the Return campaign in 2019, which was a call for the African diaspora to return home to Ghana 400 years after the commemoration of slavery in the United States, Ghana became a destination for the African diaspora, seeking connection, opportunities, and a slower pace of life. Two women who moved around the U.S. now reside in Accra, Ghana, and chose to build their lives and work in an area where maternity health is still often neglected. According to the World Health Organization, also known as WHO, in Ghana, the maternal mortality rate is estimated at more than 200 deaths per 100,000 births. According to the Center for Disease Control, or the CDC, Black women are nearly 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than Caucasian women in the U.S., with a ratio of 44.8 deaths per 100,000 births. F.A. O'Sarin is a midwife and reproductive health educator from Houston, Texas. F.A. visited Accra for the first time in 2019 on a 1-hour flight from Lagos, where her family is from. She spent a week there and noted the differences. The quieter streets, the more manageable scale compared to Nigeria. Over time, she traveled to Uganda, Rwanda, Egypt, and South Africa, auditing the continent city by city, asking a question, where do I want to move? The answer for F.A. came in 2022. She had just wrapped a work trip in South Africa. On her way back to the U.S., she made a detour to Ghana. She planned to pass through. She stayed for 5.5 months.
That was the trip where I decided that I want to move here. I started in 2012. So I started off as a birth worker, and then I became a midwife in 2021. And most of the work started just through family and friends, and then turning it into a career, but in a mixture of public health and reproductive justice organizing. I went to school at Houston Baptist University and University of Houston. And then for midwifery, I went to Maternidad La Luz and Luna Tierra, Casa de Partos. Both of those schools are in El Paso, Texas.
The most consistent advice she received from expats already living in Accra was to be patient while she figures out how to earn in U.S. dollars. So F.A. spent the next 2 years restructuring her entire career, building out virtual workshops on childhood birth education, menstrual health, and perimenopause. launching one-on-one preconception consulting, and leaning into the online infrastructure that the pandemic had gifted to health educators like her.
It took a while to figure out how to change my work from clinical care to something that I can do remotely, because one of the biggest advice that I got if I wanted to live here is that I needed to make dollars abroad in order to have convenience living here. And so it took a couple years before I came back. And I've been here about 18 months since.
Today, her practice, Orishé Midwifery, runs remotely and serves clients across the globe, typically from a laptop in a car. She has had her share of different qualities of life. F.A. says there are some things that other Americans shied away from discussing.
The biggest thing is around infrastructure and services. And so, in the West, we're very used to things working, like electricity, water, your basic necessities. Here, it's not consistent, and it's not as common. The air pollution is pretty despondent. There's a lot of trash burning, which is often burning of plastic in the air, as well as really, really old cars on the streets. There's open gutters, and so the smell of that sometimes is present.
She mentioned the toll on her body.
I find that after a while, it can be kind of weathering for me to my body to have to be on guard in similar ways that I was in the US, but different topics. So in the US, you're on guard around like your safety, you're on guard around the structural and the systemic racism. And here I'm more on guard around like the environmental pollution and the inflation comes with being an immigrant or just an immigrant from the West.
While traditional birth attendance and informal home births exist in some remote areas, home birth midwifery practices are not broadly integrated into Accra's healthcare infrastructure yet. For F.A. Oserin, life is currently rooted in Ghana now, even if her passport still travels often. The majority of her work still flows through a screen, and the version of her practice remains something she is still building.
I wish that my work could be clinical care. I wish, because in the US, I train in home birth midwifery and birth centers. That is not available here. I really love living here, and I'd probably be here again and over again.
Also in Accra, Ghana, Queen Zosimlinda Kennedy Johnson, a doula, a former hospice and palliative care worker, and the founder of EA Institute of Maternal Health, abbreviated as IYA. She is building something she believes the country urgently needs: a maternal health institute rooted in birth work, community education, and cultural continuity. Similar to F.A., Queen arrived in Ghana from Phoenix, Arizona in 2019. She did not plan to stay. She then looked around and couldn't leave. Her first-hand experience with maternal health was as a teenage mother. She remembered navigating pregnancy without a guide, a support system, and anyone professionally trained to walk her through it.
I've always been magnetized towards critical life moments. I'm a former healthcare professional, and I used to work at other threshold points. I used to be a hospice and palliative care worker, and I think for doula care, one of the things that stood out for me the most is whether it's healthcare or education, places where people need to be support, I feel more compelled to go there. And I feel like birth is one of the most defining moments in life. And so many women go through it unsupported. I was a teen mom, and so I know exactly how that feels. And I didn't want people to experience the different transitions in maternal care, from conception to delivery and postpartum, and the continuation of family.
That experience became part of the foundation of her calling, but it wasn't until she arrived in Ghana that she began looking at the landscape of maternal health care. She describes Ghana's medical professionals as strong, skilled, and resilient. But she also describes gaps that the clinical system alone cannot close. Gaps that a doula, a trained birth companion focused on the full human experience of pregnancy, can fill.
The women and the workers here are just very strong, strong medical professionals, just strong in attitude and characters and facilities, but there's also major gaps. And once I saw that, I was in the area and I was assessing what are some of the problems here, and it had nothing to do with birth work. And I learned that there was a high rate for maternal deaths, and that broke my heart. Many women are navigating pregnancy and birth without structure, without the proper care, without the proper education. And so I feel like working as a doula and putting systems in place can help support the actual clinical side of pregnancy.
Her vision for the EA Institute is not just private doula support for families who can access it, but a holistic and systematic effort to reshape how Ghana's communities understand and experience birth.
My vision is for EA Institute, which is a maternal health institute, and it's focused on strengthening how women experience pregnancy, birth, postpartum care, not just medically, but across family systems, mental health, cultural continuity. So not only will we be doing private duty, but the goal of the Institute is to also train the future of birth workers and community birth attendants, provide education to the community for areas, especially rural areas where they may not have the facilities. And my large goal is to actually have a birthing center.
To get there, she says she needs help, not someday, now.
If I could compel to people to support any way possible, via donations of supplies, in-kind donations, or just financially as well, or even coming physically to even educate or volunteer, we need all the help that we can get.
Whether in Ghana or the United States, maternal health isn't just about surviving childbirth. It's about the emotional and mental well-being of mothers long after delivery. To get involved, you can reach the EA Institute of Maternal Health by emailing iyainstitute@gmail.com. To connect with Orishe Midwifery, follow on Instagram at ORISHE_MIDWIFERY. For Focus, Black Oklahoma, I'm Zaakirah Muhammad in Accra, Ghana.
Trauma doesn't just live in our memories, it lives in the body. For many Black people, generations of stress, survival, and systemic harm are carried in muscle, breath, and nervous systems long after the moment has passed. Somatic therapy asks a different kind of healing question. Not just what happened to you, but what is your body still holding? Alana Mbanza explores somatic therapy and why reconnecting with the Black body is a powerful and often overlooked path toward restoration and wholeness.
Healing becomes even more vital when communities are processing collective trauma. LaSoar recently facilitated a workshop series called On Death, Grief, and the Importance of the Archive in Tulsa. These create space for people to sit with personal and collective grief in a time when violence and loss feel like they are running on an endless loop.
There is a grief in that, and there is a confrontation with death that I think a lot of people are not really sitting with. So for me, it became important to create this programming around death, dying, grief, and how we're holding all of this. And not just thinking about physical death of a family member per se, but thinking about how, as we continue to watch almost like the deterioration of a society that we're existing in, like that is a confrontation of this collective death. And there's like a collective grief in that. And how are we holding space for that? And thinking about what I just mentioned about these kind of feelings that are unnamed, grief a lot of times is unnamed. Grief a lot of times does not have a language. But when we come together to try to sort it out, there becomes space where we feel more open to explore that.
Melissa Williams also sees communal spaces as essential in times like these.
I think it's a space for us to grieve, to be, I don't want to say afraid together, but to accept and surrender together, because unless you are blind and like dissociated, you should be very concerned about what's going on in the world. And so I think having those spaces allows us to, even without speaking it, like be in spaces where it's like, girl, bro, like whatever it is, and just connect and love on each other.
For both practitioners, this work is most powerful when it happens in community. There's something transformative about witnessing each other's grief, each other's relief, and each other's joy. Williams speaks directly to why this matters for Black people and other marginalized populations.
And I think what makes it powerful is that it teaches safety and togetherness. And I think especially as people of color, we have gotten so far away from the village, the community, and the way our society is set up. We have these individual houses, these individual apartments. And if you're not going to church or you're not part of some other groups, you don't really have spaces where you can connect and just breathe and exist with other people. So I think the act of experiencing emotional release with other people just does something that trains us to be okay in groups and with ourselves.
LaSour has witnessed that transformation firsthand in her workshops.
It was really, really special to kind of see people in that space. Like there was no judgment from anyone, and people weren't judging themselves. They were just in it and allowing themselves again to like surrender to whatever they were feeling and navigating. There's a lot of tears. There was a lot of joy and laughter. It was just like a plethora of emotions, and it was really beautiful to be in the space with so many people who are present to that.
When researchers talk about chronic stress and inflammation, they're describing a cycle. Stress dysregulates the body's systems, inflammation builds up, and over time, the body loses its ability to recover and restore itself. Somatic practices interrupt that cycle. Movement, breath work, creative expression can be survival tools for communities carrying the weight of structural racism and ongoing trauma. The question for many people is, how do I actually practice this? Melissa Williams says it doesn't have to be complicated.
It's a lot more simple than we think. And the more I dig into somatics, I realize that in life we've overcomplicated a lot. And so as simple as making the alarm on your phone your favorite song, and when you get up, you dance your way to brush your teeth. When you get out the shower, dance. Even if it's not dancing, the act of swaying your body, the little things, walking, just getting your movement in itself. Sometimes we're busy thinking, and if you can find an activity where your brain turns off a little bit and you're in your flow state, then you're letting your body have the experience that it needs.
LaSour echoes that. For her, embodied practice lives in small acts of care. She's intentional about pushing back against what she quotes Instagram version, end quote, of healing.
I think sometimes these things can become quite trendy, like having an embodied practice. And I think people see this kind of highlight reel on Instagram or social media platforms where you're seeing someone kind of express embodied practice through movement and yoga and like caring for yourself in these very specific ways. What I've had to kind of unlearn in this process of learning is that that's not all that is. For me, embodied practice is like the small gestures that you do. And for me, that's been really important to acknowledge and affirm for myself. Because I used to kind of beat myself up about like, oh my gosh, like I need to have a routine. I need to be doing this. I need to be going to the gym. I need to be riding my bike. I need to be in nature doing walks and XYZ. And yeah, that's all great, but it doesn't have to always be this like thing that you have to like prepare for to do. You know, for me, it's as simple as like getting up and like actually like sitting for a moment and really thinking about like, okay, like I'm starting the day. And what does that mean? Are, you know, taking care of yourself with simple grooming acts like brushing your teeth. All of these things for me feel really important in terms of embodied practice because it's like these small ways of caring for ourselves that I sometimes feel like gets lost because it just feels like, oh, that's you're supposed to do that. I believe it's important not just to think of these kind of big acts as a collective, but to think of these small acts and the way these small acts build into a practice of really living and truly understanding like the things that life bring to all of us that allows us to like continue on and be in a space of really like appreciating small moments, small like flickers of joy, you know, these kind of glimmers of hope, and small acts of care for ourselves that then carry over into small acts of care for other people in our community, which I think is so important in how we are able to kind of push against all of the grief and the violence that exists in the world.
Williams offers one simple practice anyone can try.
One of my favorites and the most easiest thing, and I do this on myself often, is just taking one hand and putting it on the chest and another hand and putting it on the belly. Kind of like, you know, lower belly. And then I just close my eyes and take slow, deep, intentional breaths. And if I'm feeling anxious, my favorite phrase to say to myself is just be here with me now.
When research shows that chronic stress is likely shortening Black lives, somatic practices offer ways of reclaiming the body from systems designed to break it down. In community circles across Oklahoma, people are choosing to reconnect with their bodies, to feel what they're carrying, and to heal together. Melissa Williams hosts Liberate events each season that include communal dance and movement gatherings, along with smaller virtual somatic circles. You can find Melissa Williams at phoenixsoulchild.com and on social media at phoenixsoulchild. To learn more about Leandra Lesueur's work, follow her on social media at Elchien. That's ELLECHIEN. Beyond Oklahoma, look for somatic practitioners, grief circles, yoga and dance classes, and community writing groups. Many cities have free or low-cost offerings through cultural centers and community organizations. Black wellness collectives and healing justice spaces often center accessibility and cultural safety. Even in the face of systemic harm, communities can create spaces where people breathe, release, and remember they are not alone. For Focus Black Oklahoma, I'm Alana Mbanza in Tulsa.
Every movement carries echoes of the people who came before it. Today's activists are organizing, protesting, educating, and building community while drawing strength from generations of civil rights leaders who fought for justice at great personal cost. But as hard-won protections, public histories, and equity initiatives face renewed challenges, many are asking, what does it mean to continue the work when so much of that progress feels under attack? FBO's Francia Allen has more.
It's been said that we stand on the shoulders of the activists who led the fight for civil rights, voting rights, women's rights, and LGBTQ rights. The path they forged is still guiding us today, although those who blazed those trails to fight injustice, people such as Reverend Jesse Jackson, whom he lost on February 17th, faced dangerous barriers and experienced extreme racism. Often, their work is not understood or appreciated until they either pass away or the change is realized, however long that may take. Nevertheless, Reverend Jackson's message, "I Am Somebody," and James Brown's anthem, "I'm Black and I'm Proud," still linger in the minds and hearts of those combating the narratives of the Trump administration depicting people of color as thugs, criminals, and natural-born killers. At a time when civil rights are being attacked, journalists and freedom of speech are being targeted, brown, native, and black people are being violently detained by ICE agents, black and brown history is being erased, and when U.S. soldiers are being sent to fight the war in Iran by the Trump administration, citizens across the nation continue to join together for the No Kings protests. Local communities are making changes through their state and city elections by trying to vote for candidates who have their best interest in mind. In Tulsa, there are many people who are standing on the shoulders of those who came before them by using their positions to uplift others within their communities. Mayor Monroe Nichols, Tulsa's first African-American mayor, discusses his experiences, and Floretta Reed also talks about her trailblazing career within the U.S. Postal Service, which started in 1965, a year after the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was signed into law, and the same year the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was enacted after Bloody Sunday in Selma, Alabama. Both shared perspectives from two different generations of professional experience. First, we hear from Mayor Nichols about why he ran.
In Tulsa, if you think about that kind of abstractly, you think about here directly, there were several issues that I had a tremendous amount of passion about. I talked about when I was running for office, and we've kept those really consistent in my time here. And issues that impact every community: homelessness, affordable housing, affordability overall. Issues that are unique to this community, our relationship with tribal nations, the impacts from a trauma standpoint and economic inequality standpoint as it relates to the Tulsa Race Massacre, right? So there's this uniqueness in those issues here. And so if you take all of that together, issues that every city's dealing with, issues that we have very uniquely here, the ability to impact them in a direct way, were all the reasons why running for mayor was something I was incredibly passionate about. There's not like this assumption of inevitability with me. There's not a lot of people thought I was going to win the mayor's race, but it didn't deter me from doing it because I was so convicted in what I thought needed to be done. I think there's a lot of people, as I was climbing up my career, that if they were being honest, probably felt some level of it being some level of tokenism, as we often have to face as Black young professionals. And I imagine it's true for every young professional or every professional of color, and probably particularly true for women, but certainly true for Black men. I think all people of color. So this idea that, part of the reason why you're here is because you got to have one of them, that kind of deal. And so for me, it's always given me kind of a focus and determination, not necessarily to prove an individual wrong, but to make sure that the vision of what a young Black professional is a vision of somebody who can get a job done. Somebody who, if you look, you're now, that is now the standard.
Reed shares the challenges she faced early in her career before becoming an executive and helping to start A+, the African American Postal League United for Success, which trains up incoming leaders to become executives.
Well, I started in the Postal Service back in 1965, and I had finished college. I was looking for a job. And during that time, Blacks couldn't get a decent job. The Postal Service was probably the best job you could get because it had, your income plus benefits. You had insurance and you had a retirement system. And when I first went in the Postal Service, and they told me that if I had 30 years at 55, I could retire. And that's what made me stay at the Postal Service, because I knew I could be finished at 55. So And there was no other job anywhere around there. And I started in Los Angeles, not in Oklahoma. And there was just not very many jobs for black people. You couldn't automatically become a supervisor. You had to take an exam. And you had to wait at least 5 years before you were even eligible to take the exam. And I did that. I had messages that I should not. Well, first of all, I came in Postal Service at 21. And 5 years, I was 26. The average supervisor during that time was at least 50, 55, 60 years old. So being young, I got discriminated real bad for being 26 years old, thinking I was going to be a supervisor. I was the youngest supervisor of what they call Worldwide Postal Center back in 65. Well, I was 71 when I went out there. And, nobody wanted to listen to you. You're too young to be out here trying to tell me what to do. So that was the first, you kind of felt that being a female and being young, they didn't want you. But it was nothing they could do about it. I passed the test. I was the first female in that age bracket. The older supervisors, the older women, when I got to level 18, well, they was to level 18 in the logistics job, they swore that I was sleeping with somebody. That was your first thing that they would do to women.
While tensions in the U.S. are high due to the impact of the Supreme Court's gutting of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, negotiations to end the war in Iran, and states redistricting congressional maps to control votes, Mayor Nichols remains focused on achieving the agenda he has set for the city of Tulsa, which includes housing the homeless community, affordable housing, establishing safety protocols for the youth, improving tribal connections, and economic growth. Floretta continues to use her voice with invaluable wisdom and support for the A+ organization she helped develop for young professionals in the U.S. Postal Service. She also invests in the Tulsa community by volunteering for social justice initiatives with her church, also Unitarian Church, and other programs that help support the African American community. For Focus, Black Oklahoma, I'm Francia Allen in Tulsa.
You're listening to Focus Black Oklahoma. Would you like to pitch a story to FBO?
Or work with us as a correspondent?
Please email us at contact@focusblackoklahoma.com.
Or call 918-807-3886.
The world's biggest sporting event is coming to America, bringing with it global attention, massive investment, and the promise of unforgettable moments. But for many fans, actually experiencing the World Cup in person may remain out of reach. Rising ticket prices, expensive travel, hotel costs, and limited accessibility are raising questions about who mega sporting events are really for. As cities prepare to welcome the world, what happens to the local fans and communities who helped grow the game in the first place? FBO's Phil Childs explores the growing tension between global spectacle and public access, and asks whether the World Cup is becoming an experience reserved for those who can afford the price of admission.
When the World Cup comes to the United States, it doesn't just bring matches, it brings the world. In cities like Dallas and Philadelphia, two of the tournament's host sites, the global game becomes something you can feel in the streets, in the stadiums, and in the communities that show up around it. But behind the excitement is a bigger question: who actually gets to be part of the experience? For John Toe, a former collegiate soccer player from Philadelphia, now based in Dallas, the connection to the game has always been personal.
It wasn't until my later years, I met a good friend of mine that really kind of spoke into my existence and made me fall in love with the sport itself. I then grew up to end up playing collegiately at a Penn State branch campus. Not only was a pivotal moment in my life, but almost full 360 shaped my passion for the sport. So I'd say it's played a full role in my life, helped me build great relationships, and then as well helped me work and navigate and communicate with people. That's why I'm a recruiter today.
And like the sport itself, that connection extends far beyond the field, shaping careers like John's work as a recruiter in life sciences, supporting cancer research and development.
So, I love to tell people one thing about me. I love to travel, and just being able to go anywhere and kind of see the sport, like whether it's on the street, on a beach, wherever, even if you don't speak the same language with whoever has a ball, you kind of almost do speak the same language when you're kicking the ball.
That global connection is what makes the World Cup different. And in 2026, it's coming to Dallas, where teams like Argentina, Jordan, and Japan will take the field alongside global powers from across Europe.
What excites me the most, first and foremost, this is a once in a lifetime experience, for sure, especially coming to the U.S. It's going to be great for U.S. soccer as a whole.
But even in a host city, proximity doesn't always mean access. Ticket prices are already shaping how fans experience the tournament.
From what I'm seeing now, post lottery drawings and things like that, $600, $1,200, $2,400, anywhere in between. For me, I tell people, I was like, what's worth it to you for the experience?
For fans like Toe, that answer means finding another way in.
I know here in Dallas, we'll be at Fair Park. They'll have a whole World Cup set up for fans to come watch and kind of be in and a part of the culture there too. So super excited to see what comes around with that.
The World Cup experience is less about where you sit and more about who you're surrounded by. But for some, the challenge isn't getting seats. It's getting there at all. That's where Keisha Bird's story begins. Born and raised in Philadelphia, she now splits her time between Philly and Ghana as a resident and founded Travel Deeper, Inc., a travel and social impact company. Travel Deeper has 3 prongs. One is Discover Africa, which helps the Black diaspora connect with their roots or reconnect with their roots through travel. Another is Wear Africa, a company that partners with artisans and supports their brands so that they can show them who they are to honor their cultural heritage. And the third is Connect Africa, which connects people across the diaspora. Now, Bird's work is intersecting with the World Cup through an initiative called Ghana Girls to the World.
What we have done, in talking with the girls, they're middle and high school age and into that young adult age, is understanding the power of sports and combining youth development and wellness programming and mental health programming with sports. And so we know the power of that with leadership, with confidence, with access, right? And global exposure. And so we have an opportunity for them to potentially see the world. And so we launch Ghana Girls to the World.
Our vision is to bring those girls to Philadelphia, which has a significant West African population and where the Ghanaian men's national team will play on June 27th.
It came from these stories with these girls and young women, but it also literally, quite frankly, came from a vision that I had, a dream that I had, that we have our girls on the world stage. And what better place to have them on the stage than my hometown in Philly, where Ghana will be playing a match.
But getting there comes with real barriers. Those barriers include visas, logistics, and rising travel costs.
There is one major challenge, the fuel cost. The flights have really shifted and going up. Some of the costs and our original estimates are higher than we anticipated.
So Travel Deeper is seeking support.
The first way is to make a contribution, make a financial contribution. And you can do that through our website at www.traveldeeperinc.com. And we have a link there that is tax deductible through our fiscal sponsor, We Reign. And every contribution makes a difference, whether it's $50 or $500 or $5,000. And so that's the first step to support us financially. The other way is to share, spread the word. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Travel Deeper Inc. INC, and share. We have a number of posts there where you can see the girls, where you can see me yapping off, where you can see our student mentor, Aisha, talking about her experience. And so just sharing this and spreading the word. And then the third way is you can become a partner. And that's following up and having a conversation with me of how you want to become a partner. And that could be if you're in the Philadelphia region and you want to offer in-kind support, or you're a corporate or a brand, and you want to, make sure the girls get snacks or a meal, or support their transportation or accommodations. So there's a number of different ways that, folks can really support us.
Because for Bird, this moment is about something bigger than soccer.
What the World Cup would mean to us is not only just sports, but it's also music, it's also food, it's art, it's telling our stories. It's creating opportunities for contributions to be seen and celebrated that ordinarily wouldn't be on the world stage.
From Dallas to Philadelphia, from watch parties to global travel, the 2026 World Cup kicks off June 11th, with match schedules available on FIFA.com. And in Philly, teams from the Americas and Africa, Brazil, Ecuador, Haiti, Curacao, Ghana, and Côte d'Ivoire will take the field, bringing that global energy to life. But the connection, that part stays the same. For Focus, Black Oklahoma, I'm Phil Childs in Dallas, Texas.
Thanks for joining us on Focus, Black Oklahoma. We've all heard of empty nest syndrome, but Sonda Slade experienced half empty nest syndrome when her daughter transitioned from her child to her roommate.
What does the word roommate mean? Usually it means someone you share a space with, whether it be an apartment, house, or other living space. Depending on your living situation, you can share a bathroom, kitchen, laundry, or just a general living room. Sometimes you even share particular chores to deal with the space, such as cleaning, ordering groceries, furniture, a mailbox, dishes. It really depends on the roommate you are and the space that is occupied. As your children grow up and start reaching graduation, you may start thinking about the empty nest and the syndrome it creates. You may think about expanding that room, using it for a spare room for guests, turning it into a craft space, a gym, or just a quiet space. I thought about this more and more before my daughter graduated. I had so many ideas. A second closet, my lounge area. I would still keep her bed, but I was not interested in keeping it in her room. I remember in March, it hit me that she would be going. It hit me like a couple of pieces of Oklahoma road, and you know how hard that can be. I was sitting in her room, looking around at all of her stuff. Pictures of her friends, the many trips she had been on, her seemingly 75 plush animals looming in a canopy over my head. A mural that was half finished, Lego flowers that were finished, awards scattered throughout, various beauty supplies that, kind of looked like mine. I was still sitting there when she came home from work and caught me in there. She asked me, "What are you doing in my room?" I told her, just looking around and thinking about how proud I was of her. She meekly smiled and said, "I have some homework I need to do," which was a nice way of saying, "Get out." Still sitting there, I told her to come here and gave her a hug. She asked me, "Is everything all right?" I told her yes, just happy and sad at the same time, thinking about her going away. She said, Mom, please. We have FaceTime, Zoom. I can text and call, so it won't be that bad. Holding tears in my eyes, I just looked at her and said, well, who is going to do the other half of these chores? She said, well, that's going to be up to you. I made a joke about taking a gap year, and she balked. She didn't want to do that. I just knew my little tulip was going to fly away. Fast forward, she decided to go to Tulsa Community College with her friends and stay. I was happy, but then I thought, this is a different dynamic. I mean, in the world, she was considered an adult, but I was still her mom, right? Like, now we have to set different boundaries and rules, or did I just let things fly? Then address them when they came up. So many questions. I knew she was responsible, an honor student, holding down a job and doing college-level classes in high school. We push and nurture our kids to grow and to leave the nest. But what happens when they stay in the nest, but their lifestyle changes? I watched her as she changed her room around, took down some things she had up since middle school and replaced them with more adult things. Like, again, some of those beauty products looked familiar. I made the decision just to give her space and see if there was a need to address anything or just have an ongoing discussion. I didn't even discuss a curfew. Not because you can walk into my house at any time, but we already had a great system of letting each other know where we were and what time we would be back. She more than I. Cooking, though, became a different dance. See, I was used to primarily cooking the meals, and if she didn't eat it, it was fine because I would have leftovers for my lunch. She started cooking really good food for herself, and goodness, some of the smells were downright delicious. I was allowed to taste things here and there, with permission, of course. I taught her well, but for some reason, there were never any leftovers for my lunch the next day. Now, the groceries, I would either order or just go to the store with a list. We have a dry erase board in the kitchen, and even when my son was home, you were to write what you needed and also what we were running out of. This was to make it faster and easier, and to keep my mind and my time unclouded with having to consistently worry about running out of things. As soon as groceries came in, the board was clean. This system worked. As the college school year was passing, I did less cooking for us and she did more cooking for herself, which actually worked. I had enough for me and she had enough for her. If she felt inclined to cook something we didn't have, she would go buy the ingredients and have her way in the kitchen. One night, I came in late from a show. I wanted something to eat, but not a lot. I had bought groceries about 2 weeks earlier. I remember, oh yeah, a green apple. I'll grab that. I grabbed the apple from the bin, already washed. I start munching on it. My daughter comes in and says, is that my apple? I laugh and walk around her. She turns and asks more seriously, is that my apple? I'm thrown at this point and say, I bought a bag of apples about a week ago, so it's our apple I'm eating. She says, no, I ate all of those apples and went to the store and bought me some apples. I stood there holding this apple with several bites taken out of it and looking at her for a moment. I said, if I bought a bag of apples and you ate all of them, that means you owe me a bag of apples. I know we are 50th in education, but I do know that you know how to add and subtract. Now she is the one looking at me quizzically. I explained that if you ate the apples I bought and you bought another bag, that means you are replacing my apples. I mean, if you really want to go this route. She said, well, I really like apples and you don't eat them all the time. So here we are, standing looking at each other in the kitchen. I smiled and I asked, do you want it back or is it okay for me to eat it? She sighs and says, fine. I went to my room and thought, how was I going to make this lesson stick? Is that my apple? Are you kidding me? I'll go back to the living room, grab the bills, and actually open them up, even though they are automatically paid. I grab some masking tape and start writing down the names of stuff. My daughter yells, good night, love you, see you in the morning. I yell the same thing back. It's another hour before I go to sleep because now I have a task. Once I'm done, I fall fast asleep. The next morning, my daughter knocks on my door and I sleepily answer and tell her to come in. She has stacks of paper in her hand and is looking bewildered. Say, yes, ma'am? How are you, beautiful, I say. She says, I'm good. Mom, what is this? I reach for my glasses to look at what she's brought in. I smile and say, oh, those are the bills. You know, gas, water, electric, and streaming services. She said, yeah, but why did you slide them under my door? I said, well, as roommates, we would share things, so here you go. She said, then you labeled all the pots, the fridge, the stove, and almost all the stuff in the house. I say, correct. As roommates, we need to find a common area, as all this was mine. She looks at me half in disgust and half laughing. Okay, Mom, I get it. I say, get what? I shouldn't have said that was my apple, she says. I told her, since you don't have roommates, I want to give you that experience. She looks and says, yeah, that's okay. I learned my lesson. We haven't had any disagreements over items or anything else. Another lesson learned by the way of an apple.
Focus, Black Oklahoma is produced in partnership with KOSU Radio and Tri-City Collective. Additional support is provided by the Commemoration Fund and Press Forward. Our theme music is by Moffat Music.
Focus, Black Oklahoma's executive producers are Quresh Ali Lansana and Bracken Clark. Our associate producers are Jesse Ulrich and Naomi Agnew. Our production interns are Alexander Evans, Jess Grimes, Roma Carter, and Anna Wilson.
You can visit us online at kosu.org or focusblackoklahoma.com and on YouTube at Tri-City Collective OK. You can follow us on Instagram at focusblackok and on Facebook at facebook.com/focusblackok.com. You can hear Focus Black Oklahoma on demand at kosu.org, the NPR app, npr.org, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Did you know KOSU accepts vehicles as a form of support? You get a tax deduction, and we'll take care of the rest. Visit kosu.org or call 855-277-2346.